Spoilers ahead for anyone watching.
I don't know
Uh,
why I thought you were giving me a spoiler warning.
yeah, I'm giving you a spoiler warning, even though you watched the movie day before yesterday. Was it day before
Yes,
yesterday,
it
or
would
was
have.
it the day before
It
that?
was on Saturday.
Yeah, okay. Uh, so James, like, what's your overall rating of the film? Just going into this.
Okay. Which film?
Across the Spider-Verse, not into.
Okay. Across the Spider-Verse. Glare with its glaring issues that I have. I have to give it a 6.5.
Yikes. That's kind of where I am with it too. I prefer to do things out of five, just
I do
because I
things
find that
out of
easier
10,
personally.
but that's just because that's what I most commonly get asked. What do you rate this out of 10?
Yeah, I refuse to do that because to me it's like, man, I don't know. Once we started getting into the specifics of a 10-point rating system, I'd rather just rate it on it's crap, it's okay-ish, it's fairly good, it's pretty great, it's awesome. You know,
Yeah,
1 through 5.
I go 5, which this is apparently weird. 5 is like a passing grade. You have technically made a movie. It's not a good movie by any means, but
No, I think that's
it
fine.
does what
That is literally middle of the
does
road.
what movies do. A 7 is where most movies fall for me. That is your average
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, pretty good, pretty rewatchable
It's
is what 7 would
rewatchable.
be.
It's like it's okay. And
Yeah.
8 is like, you know what, I enjoyed that. 9 is the highest grading I've ever given a movie in my life.
Right. That doesn't seem practical to me, but
Well,
I'm fine with, I get you having that standard, but having 10 be something that is literally
10,
perfect
10 to me, it has to
doesn't.
be literally perfect, and my brain will forever operate like that. That's what a 10 out
Right,
of
that's
10
fine.
is. You got a
I
hundred
just don't like
percent.
the.
You got all the right
Yeah.
answers.
Right. To me, that doesn't seem
It doesn't seem practical, and
practical, yeah.
it's highly misleading, but it's the way my brain works.
I think the only movies that, like, feasibly would reach that would be, like, those sort of. I hate to say sappy movies because I do enjoy them, but, they're like mock-ups of real life people in real life situations overcoming those real life situations.
Yeah,
There's a really good one that I watched recently with Bill Nighy. I should probably make you watch it because it's so good. But yeah. Anyway, I mean we don't have to talk about the movie anymore.
Oh, I can talk
um,
about it. Ooh, I can
yeah.
get my grievances.
Man, this movie Across the Spiderverse, it genuinely anger the best that I know this is going to sound really stupid, but the only thing that has actually made me angry on the same level that this movie makes me angry is my girlfriend. um, cuz I love her. I love her to death
But
and she's
damn,
great and I
she
know she's not a perfect
annoying.
person, but man, sometimes, she she can drive me up the wall. And that's kind of where I am with Across the Spider-Verse.
Well,
Um,
where I sit is, as you put earlier, I I fall to the Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes fallacy again.
yeah, God
I
Almighty,
bought the tutorial level and nothing
I
else.
I could get over everything else about the movie. I genuinely could if it just fucking had a third act. And I know that see, movie critics fucking love this movie, so we have to be really clear about what we mean here. This movie does not have a third act. It does not have a conclusion in it. And that is bad. That means it is not a full movie. It is not a full story. There are plenty of movies that are in between films or startup films where the full plot is not concluded until a later movie.
That is fine. I don't
Yeah,
really
but they
like it,
still
but it's fine.
right. Well, I'm fine with series. I love Lord of the Rings. I love Star Wars to some
I
extent.
don't. I guess
I
on some level,
can watch Harry Potter and be happy.
I can't. Harry
Uh,
Potter makes me angry on a deep level. It's not a
and
fucking
that's
wizard
fine.
movie. It's about a fucking dumbass, stupid ass.
I enjoy those movies. I will be the first one to point out the flaws in those movies, though.
Harry's a
They are
shit character.
Harry is a shit character. That's
Same with
absolutely
Ron
correct.
and Hermione. They're all bad.
I kind of like Ron, but he's weird in some of the films. He's very inconsistent because I
Well,
don't think the
aren't
movie writers could
aren't the
decide
character
what they wanted him to
aren't the
be.
three main characters in Harry Potter like really static characters?
Well, I don't think any character in the movies has an arc.
Like,
No, wait, Draco Malfoy has an arc.
well, what's his name? Like, is it like Neville Longbottom or whatever the fuck is the most dynamic character in all
Yeah.
of Harry Potter?
Well, I people always point that out. I hate to say that though because his change, like, I guess you kind of see it happen, but it's mostly off screen. It's mostly just he goes from being the wimpy nerd in the first movie exclusively
I
to
I think
being a good character in the fifth
I
one,
think
and
they
then
explore it a little more in the books, just because it's a book.
well, they explore everything a little bit more in the books.
And I think that's where most people get that conclusion from, because Harry is not a more dynamic character in the books. He really doesn't change too
I,
much, according
right, I
to
would just have to take
anyone
your
who
word on that.
I'm only taking people's words on it, because I'm not reading the
Okay.
Harry Potter.
There are better books for me to spend my time on if I'm going to
If I
read
want to
books.
read a magic wizard book, there are so many more books that are way better for that.
Yeah,
And I don't
absolutely.
want to support J.K. Rowling any more than she already gets. But
Fair enough. Um,
anyways, yeah, this movie's
we should
major
Spider
these
Verse.
this movie's major plot points never get concluded ever.
None of them
None of
do.
them, which is a
They all
problem.
well, and then it doesn't even like conclude its scene
No.
necessarily. It just stops and there's a to be continued screen.
Yeah,
Like it's fucking Dragon
it's
Ball.
like
Like
either like resolve what you have set up for it with Miguel O'Hara, which again that should be Superior Spider-Man, but anyways. Um,
yeah, we'll get to that though.
or you can resolve the plot line with the spot,
You know what? I'm fine with them not even
or,
resolving the main
or
plot
you can
lines.
get fucking Miles to a point where he can accomplish either of those goals.
Yeah, put Miles in a position where he is safe at least, or where, we can see that, set up that there's going to be a way for these things to be fixed. My example of that would be like the Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers, right? The
Yeah,
second movie. It and I guess the second book as well. Actually, the books all end in different places from the movies,
yeah,
except for the first one, I think. But the Two Towers, right? It ends with Sam and Frodo again just marching off into Mordor, but we had the conclusion of Helm's Deep. We had this arc with Sam and Frodo and their friendship. We had sort of Smeagol, Gollum, go on this arc through the movie where he finally just resolves to kill Sam and Frodo. An arc that was started in that movie, but still concludes in that movie because it's a contained movie. It has, it has three acts in it. You can identify what the acts are because it's a movie, and movies have to have three acts. They have to be full movies. I'm not gonna. I don't want to go. Don't want to pay $13 for my ticket and $10 for concessions and $20 for my taxi ride. Just come away with to be continued and no plot points resolved. That was viscerally angering for me. And for everyone else in my theater too. This isn't just us. It seems like it. because of the online discussion surrounding this movie being so positive, but my entire theater groaned. It was audible. I've never heard that in a movie theater before. I've been to see bad movies. I have never heard a collective "ah" in the theater from every participant. Am I alone? Hello? My internet cut out. I'm talking to myself. Okay, speak.
Hello?
Hello. Okay, so the thing's working now. I don't know why my.
Um,
I think I need to. Oh no, there it goes. We're good.
there was
Um,
there
what
was
was the
some
last thing
point I
you
was
heard me say?
I heard you say everything.
A collective groan from the audience. So you could hear
Yeah.
me, but I couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, so when I went to see the movie, it was 10 o'clock and the movie let out at 1 a.m. There was fucking nobody in the theater but me, my friend, and my friend's girlfriend,
Ah,
right?
right.
They loved the way it ended. I groaned.
Why did what? So okay, when you come to like a topic like this, it's like okay, so why did you love how it ended, right? Why do you love that? What can you give me a reason? Did they give
Why
you a
they
reason?
I told them my reason that none of it came to a conclusion and it felt like I bought the first two acts of a movie.
Because you
And
did.
that they set and the to be continued is next year we're gonna sell you the third act.
Yeah.
And they were like, nah, there was a third act. And I was like, okay, how did any of its plot points conclude? And when they didn't, I'm like, then there was no third fucking act. Now was there? There was no conclusion. And like the conclusion was that there was a lack of a conclusion, and I wanted to beat
Oh
them.
my god, that is such like a movie reviewer thing to say. Like actually
I
no,
was like,
I think there's actually a movie review out there where there's a guy who says it is complete in its incompleteness.
I was talking to them, right? And I was like, that's not a conclusion. And he's like, ah, it's a stylistic choice to to not make a
No, it's
conclusion.
not.
And I'm like, no.
It's a shitty choice.
You want to know what makes a story? This is a very simple diagram. A story.
Has a
To be a
beginning, a
story,
middle, and an end.
a story has to have an introduction, a rising action, a climax, a falling action, and a conclusion. Those are five things that every story needs. Something to introduce a conflict, something to build up to the conflict, something for then the conflict happens, then the falling after the conflict, and the total conclusion.
Do you think that they would consider Miles fighting the spider people, escaping,
It's not a
and
I
getting to
They
the
agreed with me that none of the plot points were concluded.
well, from movie reviewers, would you think that they would say that Miles escaping the other spider people and getting to Earth 42 counts as a conclusion to that
Probably,
conflict? Because I don't think that
but no,
counts, frankly.
it doesn't because Miguel O'Hara
Yeah, his conflict.
proceeds to chase him.
Yeah, and it's. Yeah, and then he's not out of danger once that happens either. That would be like if we cut off. Ah,
It's
so
like
many things.
if you bought this video game and you're playing it, right? And you play through the first mission of this video game, then it tells you, fuck you, go buy our other video game.
For full price.
It would be really crazy for a game company to do something like that, right,
Yeah,
Max?
I know, right?
I can't think of a single game company that would ever do that.
No. Uh ending 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 the movie where it does would be like if you ended Empire Strikes Back. You've seen the Star Wars movies, right?
Yes.
would be like if you ended Empire Strikes Back after like they escaped Hoth while the
Mhm.
Millennium Falcon was being chased by TIE
It's
fighters
like
through space. It's like that wouldn't be a conclusion.
that's fine for a TV show if I know the next episode's gonna air next week.
I still don't like that practice in TV shows,
I
especially when
don't
they do
like it.
seasonal cliffhangers. God almighty.
I don't like it in TV shows, but I'm more okay with it in TV shows.
Yeah, because it's you're
Um,
getting the next part next week. That really
not
pissed me off in The
in a
Walking Dead, though.
potential year.
That really pissed me off in The Walking Dead, though, because Walking Dead started doing that at their mid-season finales. They would have like big, episodic cliffhangers, and then you'd have to wait uh 3 months for the next
Oh
mid-season.
God. Yeah, that was awful. Anyways, moving on from the glaring lack of an act three, because
Yeah,
I do need to go to bed soon.
right. We need to
Um,
talk about the other problems.
I will now address problem number two, which is the second largest problem that I feel like this movie has, which is that the concept of the canon event is antithetical to fucking Spider-Man.
Well, so there this is a two-pronged approach that we have here, right? Do we want to tackle this in the idea that a canon event makes no sense on its own, like logically, or the Spider-Man aspect of it? I feel like we should
I
break
would
those into
like
two
to
parts.
I would like to talk about the Spider-Man aspect wholly first and how Spider-Man as a character
There is no
would
Spider-Man who fucking lets people die. That's just not a thing.
especially not like a Spider-Man that would let his fucking uncle or dad die.
Yeah, that
If
isn't.
Spider-Man had the choice to go back and save Uncle Ben, he'd do it.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what kind of multiverse bullshit was happening, he would try to find a way. He wouldn't give
He'd,
up just because another Spider-Man told him he couldn't. That isn't a
he'd save
that just
him, and
isn't
then
a thing.
when shit went wrong from saving him, he'd find a way to solve the other shit.
I want to
That's
be I want
Spider-Man.
to be very clear here because there are going to be people who are like super angry at us over this. This isn't that neither me nor James would make the decision to let people die to save the multiverse. I think that's a decision that I could see both of us making, right? Because that doesn't necessarily violate our moral codes. Uh, I think you and I are both in
It
favor,
violates
largely,
Spider-Man's moral
right.
code.
I think you and I are both largely in favor of, you know, it's okay to put the needs of the many ahead
Well,
of the few sometimes. It is not a thing for Spider-Man though. That is a violation of Spider-Man's core principle. Um,
well, I am a utilitarian, right?
right.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Yeah, for me, I don't
That that
I don't know where I would be on that. I've always had a hard time answering the trolley problem, but I think when it comes down to it, I would probably pull the lever. Um,
like I think for me, I'm now, of course, I'm not a total utilitarian because
well, yeah,
then that
no
means I'm
one
in
is.
favor of that means I'd be in favor of complete government supervision of like everything you do at all times,
Which is no good.
which I think that is a complete invasion of privacy. But anyways, um, my opinion is, and again, I've said I would not have as much of a problem if they had to change Spider-Man to make this plot point work. But
It's the problem that
you
they've
have
introduced.
Superior Spider-Man
Right.
who he's Dr. Otto Octavius, who is a very smart individual and a very manipulative individual
Well, I
who
think
could who is when he's Superior Spider-Man, he's a utilitarian. He is trying to do the right thing
yeah,
by
that's his whole
saving the
thing.
largest amount of people,
That is
and he's
literally the
shunned for
whole
it. That's a
point.
big thing.
Yeah, like I think in the
And so
Spider-Verse
you can
comics,
have him do that.
Yeah, and like in like the Spider-Verse comics, I'm pretty sure he executes someone because like he's too dangerous to be kept alive. And then Peter Parker beats the shit out of him and flings him back into his own universe because of it. It's like actually a thing
Yeah.
that happens. But yeah, that's the
Um,
whole point of Superior. It's why he calls himself Superior Spider-Man. He's like, I'm willing to do the shit that Peter Parker isn't willing to do. That is the whole point.
and you can have this Spider-Man. Now, of course, you couldn't have as big of a multiverse, but you don't need this giant multiverse full of mini cameos.
Yeah,
It's fucking stupid.
it angers me that they decided to do that because that means that they aren't just violating like Spider-Man's core principle. I'd be okay with that if it was self-contained within their series of movies, within their Spider-Verse. The problem is that now they've introduced everything. It's not just the Spider-Verse that has, you know, these unique characters that they've created for these movies. It's now everything. It's the comics, it's the movies, it's the TV shows, it's the games, it's all of them. Which means every single one of those Spider-Men,
All of
them, all of them are culpable. Every single one of them has participated in this systematic just allowance of people dying, preventing them from being saved, in fact.
like there's Spider-Man who you or Spider people, I guess, I don't know. That you could make the reasonable conclusion that Doc Ock could have manipulated them at their most vulnerable points in their story into being what he needs them to be. And it would be a much smaller team, but you may have it make sense. And then you have the more interesting story hook of when you have Miles go against Superior Spider-Man's canon event stuff. You have these other spider people start to realize that you can save everyone if you
Right.
try hard enough.
Which is
If
probably what it's
if
going
you're
to end
willing
up
to
being.
sacrifice.
I've given you a beer.
It is what it's gonna Thank you.
You're
It
welcome.
is what it's gonna end up being, but it would make so much more sense and be so much more fulfilling if you ended up with this smaller scale of all of this just like maybe small crew of 5 or 6 characters that come to this realization after being manipulated for like fucking years by Doc Ock.
Yeah, ruin your own Spider-Man. Don't ruin Spectacular Spider-Man.
Like like and there's Spider-Man that are in the comics that could be manipulated in this way. A prime example would be Ben Riley could be
Yeah,
manipulated in this way.
yeah, absolutely.
You could have him exist in this way. In their movie, fucking Gwen, you could have him manipulate her after her father tries to arrest her, her and
They did with Miguel
pin,
though.
and they have him, they have him pick her up, and then it's a whole manipulation thing, and it's good.
Yeah, it's
It
fine
works
because
with
it's their own
Superior
character.
Goddamn Spider-Man.
Yeah, it would work better with Superior Spider-Man, and it works
And
fine as it
it
is.
bothers me. It, it makes me blow a gasket because it's not like Superior Spider-Man was an unpopular story. It was extraordinarily popular.
It's the only like Spider-Man comic that
It
I've read in full. I've read the Superior
it's
Spider-Man comics.
it's what it, it's one of the it is I think one of the most popular offshoots.
Yeah. Um,
And that's what makes me so angry is they have a character that would have
they
worked
have a character who was widely popular,
fine.
who would have made way more sense, who they didn't use. And then subsequently, they destroyed all the Spider-Man ever made. So we're just in agreement that Peter Parker would never fucking let people die. It's just not his thing. He would fight, he would find a way. That is his character. It's really weird that they only did that with Miles Morales. Now we need to talk about the
The
the canon
Timo,
event
how
in
it
the
just doesn't
room.
make sense.
Yeah, so you can't make a multiverse where there are canon events. That doesn't make sense. You have a system in which, in every universe, there are events which must occur,
Or the universe
or the
collapses.
universe collapses. These events can be
But
affected
sometimes
by
it
multiversal
fucking doesn't.
travel, right? These
And time travel. These are
and
the
time
two things
travel.
that can affect them.
Yeah, but also they can just sort of be affected by things that happen in the universe, which we'll get to. Um,
In Earth 42 head ass.
yeah, Earth 42, God. Um, so if you have a multiverse, the principle behind a multiverse is that events happen differently, which facilitates new character developments, new characters, the existence of new plot. That's how a multiverse works.
Well,
Different
yeah.
things happen, therefore you get a new universe.
Well,
So
yeah, because that's like that is the whole point of a multiversal theory is that there is a different universe for every possible outcome.
right.
So there's a universe in theory where Ben, Uncle Ben, Aunt May, none of them fucking die.
Yeah, that I think
And
that might actually
Spider-Man
be a
is still
comic line as well.
Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Where
that is wholly possible. And it would be a
that is the
completely
point.
different Peter Parker too, right? Because if his uncle doesn't die, he never really learns the "with great power, with great responsibility" thing. That's the whole point of
And
Uncle Ben's
sure,
death.
I get at a point he probably learns that, and that's probably a big point in a comic book series where that would happen.
Yeah, if you did it that way, you would have to have Peter Parker learn that differently, because he's still Peter Parker.
And if you look at Miles Morales' story, it is almost kind of the culmination of, at least in these movies, of really trying to dissect these core principles of Spider-Man.
Right, you have all these different people that have these elements of Spider-Man, and each of them becomes Spider-Man because of that, not because Spider-Man is a particular person. Every
No,
universe
like
has a Spider-Man, but not all of them have even been bitten by I mean, Penny Parker hasn't been bitten by a radioactive
she's
spider.
got the psychic link to the spider that's in her like robot or whatever, right?
Yeah,
And then of course you have the real Asian
the real
Spider-Man.
Japanese Spider-Man, Takuya Yamashiro, uh,
I
who encountered an alien spider. God, that show's wild. We should do that at some point. But
It's the fucking most brilliant.
it is so much fun.
I love clicking on his fucking Marvel wiki page and reading the quote. I am the emissary
Sorry
of
from
hell,
hell,
and I
Spider-Man.
shall fight this great evil for the fight of all the spiders. He
Yeah.
is so fucking extra.
Um. Yeah. So, God, where were we going with that? Oh, so let's start with the
Nothing, I just
baseline.
thought it was funny.
There are canon events in every universe. These canon events. Let's
Yes.
pretend there aren't canon events outside of Spider-Man, even though there absolutely would be. These canon events are solely restricted to Spider-Man. Every universe has someone who becomes a Spider-Man, and then that Spider-Man exhibits these certain
Except
events.
for Earth 42.
We're getting there. And if that Spider-Man doesn't if that Spider-Man doesn't exhibit these canon events, the universe implodes. Um, except for Earth 42, where there isn't a
Except for Earth
Spider-Man,
42.
so the universe didn't implode anyway. Um,
And except for Miles universe, because there's two Spider-Men, and that's also not supposed to happen.
right, Miles's universe where he wasn't supposed to be bitten, which means Peter Parker wasn't supposed to die. He was supposed to continue a very happy life with Mary Jane, but that didn't happen, and I guess that just wasn't a canon event that got violated. Um, so we talked about that in DMs. There's
Except it's
more.
directly stated. Except it's directly stated in Across the Spiderverse that was a direct violation of the canon events, and Miles Morales is the living embodiment of a contradiction to the canon events. Anyways,
Wait, but we're not even done there because I have two words for you, and I'm hoping you catch on quickly. Gwen Stacy.
uh,
She isn't in her universe, right? So her dad stops being a police chief. Now wait a second. Her dad was supposed to fucking die as police chief. Um, I think we
yeah,
might have violated the canon events here, don't you think? I think
and
that maybe Miguel
let's
fucked up the timeline on that one.
well now I come to this other thing, like, so the particle accelerator, right?
Hmm.
That that fucks up the universe stuff and fucks up the canon events, right? Because it creates multiversal travel, right?
Even though the
Follow me here.
particle accelerator was always going to be created by Fisk, it's just a thing that happens in the timeline, which means that it should always happen, but go on.
Happen so you see this particle accelerator. So canon events cannot be hampered unless through time travel or multiversal travel,
Right,
right?
which means that it's a canon event that
These are
Fisk
two
builds the
consistents.
particle accelerator, right?
These signs, so that happens. That's part of Spider-Man's story.
Right.
But that creates the interference with the canon. What? Oh, how?
How can something that happens in canon create interference with the canon? And then you think about that and you're like, well, wait, time travel happens in the canon, though. So doesn't that mean that that also can't. Doesn't that mean that anything that happens ever is just an event that's supposed to happen? How can there be an event that happens in a timeline that isn't supposed to happen? And when you get that far, you're like, okay, I've thought more about this than the writers have. Um,
Well, it's we've come to a conclusion that these canon events
they're
at the
stupid.
very least aren't completely thought out, and at the very worst can't it just is a stupid plot device. You can just make it so that, like, fucking the multiversal energy of the particle accelerator, now that it's destroyed, also does not make any fucking sense, is still leaking out for some reason and pulling things to other. Okay, this bothers me. Why are villains being pulled to fucking these separate dimensions? Wouldn't they be being pulled to Miles's dimension and only Miles's dimension?
Well, I'm okay with that, I guess, in like
It
the
just
creation of the particle
bothers me.
accelerator. The creation of the particle accelerator, which by the way, I forgot, doesn't just happen in Miles's universe anyway.
No,
It's happening
the
in all the
spot
universes.
goes ar-
He goes
the
to every
spot goes
universe.
around to take them.
Yeah, so it's happening in like every universe, this particle accelerator event. So it's not just Miles's dimension. It can't be. But let's just say that this particle accelerator thing, or not particle, super collider. Particle accelerator is the Flash. Um, let's say that the super collider caused like holes to just be punched in space. I can accept that. Okay. You know what? Let's even say that I accept your canon event thing. Just keep it consistent though. If you had it so that the canon events were a thing, it's stupid. I hate it. But fucking again, I just come back to Gwen Stacy. Her dad doesn't die. I come back to Earth 42. There's no Spider-Man in that. You know, these are violations of these so-called canon events. Um,
Yeah.
and then I had another one. I forgot what it was. Hang on, give me.
The fucking Miles existing and his universe still
Well, yeah,
existing.
that too. Miles can't exist in his own universe. It's a violation of the canon events in his universe. Oh, I was going to say. So these canon events, right? There, some of them are universal per Spider-Man, right? Some of them are
Oh,
every
the police captain
the
thing.
police captain thing, which does not happen in. any of the cartoons, as far as I'm aware, but or in the Tobey Maguire films, which are canon to this movie. But we'll ignore the police captain thing for now,
Or in the Tom Holland
or in the Tom
films.
Holland films.
I'm
Well,
not sure about
well,
the Andrew Garfield
it did
ones.
happen in the Andrew Garfield one. We know that did happen. But so
I
for Peter Parker,
I
Captain
haven't
Gwen
watched that
Stacy
in a
dies,
while.
right? That's the
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, for Miles Morales, uh, Captain Jefferson Davis dies.
That
For
is
Gwen
the assumed
Stacy,
thing, yes.
for Gwen Stacy,
It's her,
Captain Gwen Stacy
it's her
dies, right?
dad.
So each of these events are tied to their
Yeah.
Spider-Man, right? Uh,
Hmm.
so the relationship that Spider-Man has to the police captain is that it's the police captain saving someone, and Spider-Man, failing to save the police captain. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
My bars dipped, so I wasn't sure
Back.
if I was still connected. Um,
Okay.
but we've reached a problem. To Peter Parker,
Hmm.
Captain Gwen Stacy is Captain Gwen Stacy of the police force. His girlfriend's father that he doesn't know very well, right? To Gwen Stacy, he's her dad. That's a different relationship. To her, he's not the police captain. He's her
He's her
father.
fucking dad.
So to
Like,
Miles Morales, Jefferson Davis is not the police captain, he's his dad. So does the
the different.
multiverse understand the concept of a police officer? Because otherwise, the connection that these characters have are very different.
Like, and I think in the original Peter Parker story, when you come up to this point of the captain dies, right?
Right.
It's something where Peter comes to the realization that he needs to be better in a sense,
Yeah.
needs to try harder, needs to sacrifice more of himself to save everyone. And
Right. I think that's what it was supposed to be in the Amazing Spider-Man films, for sure.
but once you come into it being this is my dad,
Yeah, it becomes about the personal
that
toll at that point, right?
it becomes part of losing your fucking dad.
Right. It becomes it stops being the death of a police captain and instead becomes the death of Uncle Ben, right? I
It
mean,
becomes Uncle Ben 2 Electric Boogaloo.
yeah, I mean that it's just a completely different thing to the characters. So why would the multiverse care about the concept of a police officer, which doesn't even mean the same thing across universes, surely, right? Like the duties
No, like
associated with being a police officer or like what the police actually do or are. Surely that's different across
I'm
multiverses.
sure it's different, like the Indian Spider-Man. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. It was in the movie.
It's Pritvatgia something. I don't remember.
I'm sure the police captain in that story has very different roles than the one in Peter's story.
Right. Presumably it would be more of I actually don't know what the police force is like in India, but
Mm, It's
whatever
more like
difference
that.
I'm assuming whatever differences exist uh, from like in Indian police compared with American police, they'd be very different, right?
Yeah,
Or if you had like a Canadian Spider-Man, right? It would be like a royal. Well, you guys have normal cops, right?
we have normal cops, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess it would be that then. Oh, here it is.
But
Paviter Pravakar.
well, we have like city cops, like so we have like city of Penticton police officers and whatnot.
Right.
And then we have like just the RCMP, which is the Royal Canadian
Mounted
Mounted
police.
Police.
Yeah. I only know that because
And
of Dudley Do
both
Right.
of those exist.
Right.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, so the relationship, uh, each Spider-Man has to the police officer that dies would be different, and what a police officer even is per reality would be different. So it's, you know, and then in some universes they don't even die. So you're like, well, what now? What do we do now? We just ignore
Yeah,
that. I
that's basically what we've come to. It's ignore the problem, I guess.
yeah, just I think that's what the movie like writers would probably say to us, right? It's like we only included these references to these other materials to be a cool little funny thing for fans to pick up on. It's like, yeah, but you still included them.
Which
You
means
still
that part
had
of this,
spectacular Spider-Man attack Miles Morales. Like it wasn't just a thing that was in the background, right? It was slammed in your face.
no, right? Like you have that, and it's so annoying. And I don't know, man. I really don't think the whole Earth 42 plot line is that important. I'm gonna keep it a stack with you.
Right, I guess we come to Miles being the Prowler in that universe, right?
Yeah, it's I don't know, man.
I'm not
Maybe it'll
sure.
be more important in the next movie and I'll come to care about it. But as of this very second in time, it feels like fluff content.
Well, yeah, it's absolutely that. But I would just like to say I think I don't appreciate that. Well, first of all, let's be real clear here. Of all of the Spider-Men to have an alternate life in which they are just straight up a criminal, they picked the Black Spider-Man. I would like to say that real quick. That is That's an interesting choice that they made, first of all. But second of all,
Do that.
they did do that. But second of all, just, I don't think that's a. It's okay, so this universe, right? It's so similar that Miles couldn't even tell the difference when he got into it, right? He couldn't tell the difference in his mom. He didn't know until he found out that his, like, dad wasn't alive, right?
Yeah, and then
This,
you come into this coming off of watching the previous movie. Miles's uncle did not want Miles involved in it.
yeah, that's kind of what I was getting to. It's like, so presumably this Jefferson Davis is, or not Jefferson, Aaron Davis is also very similar. So why did he
If
indoctrinate Miles into being the Prowler
Aaron, I feel like, would have done everything in his power to shove that life away from Miles.
like he did in
Yeah,
this movie?
he would have. So Jefferson Davis dies, assumedly around the same time that Aaron died in this movie.
Maybe, yeah.
I would assume, maybe not, but he
I
died.
don't. Yeah,
Not an important part. I feel like Aaron would come to try and make up for the gap that Miles's dad left,
yeah. That seems
and
to
then
be
would just kind of refuse to explain where he's getting the money from.
right. That seems to be what has happened in that universe.
Yeah, but I just don't get the indoctrination of Miles.
Yeah, I don't see Aaron Davis doing that. Having watched this movie,
No, it's like that just doesn't seem like the character.
no. And frankly, I don't see a Miles that is so similar to the Miles from the universe we're in becoming the Prowler because his dad died. That
No, that's just not my, like he didn't decide to spiral even that much when Aaron died.
yeah,
It's
no. He
he came to the realization that shit unfortunately happens and he had to be the hero.
yeah.
He
Uh
had to push aside his personal feelings and take the leap.
Now, again, we could maybe justify Miles not being as great of a person, but I mean, at what point did his dad die? That matters to me. See, because
That does matter because, like,
I
if he
feel like
dies
Miles's dad is more
roughly,
important to him than Spider-Man
yes,
is.
if Miles's dad dies roughly around the same time Aaron dies in this movie, right?
Yeah, Miles just straight up does not become the Prowler.
No, because I think because what's the next movie happens like immediately after this movie, right?
No, it's about a year later.
That is really weird to me. Anyways, so about a year later, so you got that. That's just not going to happen. Miles would realistically probably still be in a rich kid's school after getting like a scholarship.
Well, I could see him falling out of school because of his dad dying. That
He
might,
can fall out of school and he comes, a little bit of a hooligan,
but becoming the
but like
Prowler, that,
he wouldn't inherit on Aaron's mantle.
yeah.
Just he wouldn't.
If they explain that his dad had died much earlier, maybe,
Maybe. But
maybe. But this
but
universe seems so similar. It's
I just don't see it, man.
yeah. Um. So yeah, we've talked about some small issues. We've talked about some large issues. I think we've gotten most of our problems out of the way, right?
Pretty much.
The big problems, like three, but they're huge. They're demonstrable problems. You've violated the core of Spider-Man. You've broken your universe's rules, and what was the? My brain's not working right now. Broken Spider-Man, broken Universal rules, and you don't have a third act.
You
You
violated my
violated
money.
movies. You violated movies. You violated Spider-Man, and you violated yourself. You've taken my money.
And I think it's especially bad for you because like I walked to the theater. It was free for me to go to the theater.
Paid $20 for a cab.
You had to pay to get there.
Yeah, I
Pay
had
an
to.
additional like $30 to fucking watch the movie.
Right. Yeah, it was just. Uh,
Like I was like, man, Max went through it.
yeah, cause I expected to like this movie. I just expected that, and and the thing is,
Well,
there are things that I really like about this movie. This movie has such good character writing, other than the fact that other than the fact that it is violating the core principle of Spider-Man.
the
All of the
actual dialogue and character arcs are good.
Yes, it's very well done. Despite the fact that it's not very Miguel O'Hara, I do like the character that they have. He doesn't fit
Um,
Spider-Man 2099 for me, but you know what? I think he's a cool character. I think the way they created him is neat. I think he's compelling.
the fucking spot, which
God, the
correct me
Spot
if
is
I'm
he's a
wrong.
joke character in the comics and he
He's
is
a villain of
so
the week.
good.
He is genuinely a villain of the week in the
He's
comics.
he's the result of a bagel hitting him on the head, but that doesn't matter. See, again, and that would be something that
And
plays into the
he's a
Spider-Man principle, right? He's still important because he's still a person,
he's a little goofy even in this movie.
even in this movie.
He's like the quippy villain.
And then he becomes so terrifying.
And then you see the scene once he's absorbed like all of this particle energy, and he's like this like dark distortion of himself.
Yeah.
And it's really funny because at this point, he just really cares about becoming Spider-Man's nemesis.
Right, like his goal is kind of silly, but also in a
It's
sense it's
goofy.
absolutely terrifying. And
It's terrifying because he is completely a person unhinged. That is
yeah,
what he is at this point.
yeah, it's
And
and
he's
the
going to
reason
do
why he's
what
unhinged makes sense. That there's
he's
that as
lost
well.
everything.
He's lost everything. And he was never like a particularly virtuous person to begin with because he was working for the Kingpin and for Alchemax. I mean, he might not have
No,
known. I'm not certain of that.
but his life was ruined.
Yeah, his life was destroyed by Spider-Man, by what happened there. It
He is
needed to happen,
as
but it did still
shining
happen.
He's a shining testament to what happens when you don't save everyone.
Yeah. Um.
People like him happen.
Right. It's he's fucking fantastic. The music was great. I love Gwen's theme in the movie.
Yeah,
Uh,
music awesome.
the
I just can't get over how they made the goddamn Sabat cool.
yeah,
He's
that's
such a stupid villain.
it's in the same vein as me for like how they made the Vulture cool in the live action Spider-Man movies. I like the
Well, I
Vulture.
think I also I they had like the real Renaissance era Vulture in the beginning of this movie,
Oh yeah, that was
which I
fun.
thought he was really cool.
Yeah, that was fun.
His like the whole Renaissance theme on all his gadgets was super dope.
I loved it. It
The
was like those goofy D
unique,
and D tools you would find on Pinterest and send to
yeah,
make me angry.
yeah, because they're fucking ridiculous, but it's cool, it's goofy.
Yeah,
I can find more D&D tools and send them to
I hate you.
you. There's a lot of stuff that I love about this movie. Yeah, I've just come to this conclusion, I guess, that like this movie is so close, so extraordinarily close to being one of my favorite movies of all time. Being a movie that I would genuinely rate higher than The Iron Giant. And
I don't know if I'd go that far, but yeah,
I love this movie. And I love a lot of the themes it presents.
yeah,
But it irks me because it's the Metal Gear Solid ground zeros of movies.
uh, yeah,
And I'm I'm hoping, because I've genuinely made this plan, that I'm gonna plan out a day where I'm gonna go see the third movie in theaters, right?
hmm
And before I go to see it in theaters, I'm gonna watch the second one and go watch the third one in theaters and just treat it like I'm watching one really long movie, and maybe I'll be happier. Maybe that'll fix it because I can trick myself into believing there's a third act.
yeah. I guess this is what like Lord of the Rings fans felt when they what not even because they got full movies. Um, but more or less what they felt when they watched like the theater versions of the films, and it's like, well, in the extended editions, all these problems are going to be fixed. And it's like, well, you got to buy the extended editions if you want to see the good versions. And I highly
You
recommend
know
anyone who's
what?
watching Lord of the Rings watch the extended editions.
You know what, Max?
hmm
That's the thing. The extended editions wouldn't fix these problems.
Right, because you still wouldn't have an ending to this movie.
You wouldn't have an ending to this movie. You still have the canon event thing being a problem. And you still have the antithetical to Spider-Man thing being an antithetical to Spider-Man thing. No extending of the movie is going to fix that.
Yeah, the,
But I will also come at this from the angle of I fully understand that that those two issues, well, the antithetical to Spider-Man issue comes from me kind of having been engrossed in Spider-Man for a long time.
right. These are what you would
It
call nerd issues.
These are nerd issues. These are issues that the fans of Spider-Man will have, but the casual viewer will not give a shit about.
Right. Which would also apply to the multiverse thing because most casual viewers just don't think of those sorts of things. That doesn't make it not a flaw. That doesn't even make it not a huge, glaring flaw. But it
It's
does
just a
mean that
flaw
it's
most people won't think about.
right.
And it's, but there is a flaw that everyone will think about. That's that the movie doesn't conclude.
Yeah, that is such a problem. That's like such a big problem that I would genuinely consider not even giving it a full, like, well, 6 out of 10 as you put it, a 3 out of 5 for me. Like, I almost feel like I can't in good conscience give this movie a good rating because it is not a
I
complete product, you know?
I cannot give it the average movie rating. I don't think it fails as a movie, so I can't give it below a 5. And I
Except
think
except in a fundamental way it does, right? I mean, like,
it
it's failing to
does.
it
I
literally
I
fails to be a complete movie.
I got it. By my standard, I actually do have to rate it lower. I have to rate it below a 5.
Which I hate, because I love so many things in this
I
movie.
love this movie, but this movie has to be a 4 or a 3. A 4. Because if you cannot do a introduction, a rising action, a climax, a falling action, and a conclusion, you have not made a story.
Right, which means you can't really, uh, yeah,
You can't really say
you
it's
can't reach the
succeeded as a
base. Yeah,
story.
you can't say you've succeeded or reached the baseline if you don't reach the baseline.
And it saddens me because I do like this movie.
Yeah,
And if I wasn't me, I'm sure I would love this movie.
right. No, and I think people, like, anyone who watches this is going to be, like, really upset at us for this because, like, I've
Well,
seen, like, lots of. I haven't watched reviews of this movie, right? I want us to be clean going into this. But,
Wiki clean.
yeah, I've seen titles from people I like, from people I approve of, talking about how great this is, and it is great in so many ways, and it's so disappointing.
I think, as you put it, this is the most disappointing movie you've ever watched.
Yeah, for me it is.
For
K-
me, this is the most disappointing film that I have ever watched. Because I was, and this is coming from me, I'm not a huge Spider-Man fan. He is far from my favorite superhero,
He is my favorite superhero.
right? I'm not a Spider-Man fan. I know things about Spider-Man, though. And it just irks me because this comes into, and this is something my other friends don't understand. And it's they've changed the one thing that makes Spider-Man Spider-Man. So now you don't, to me, right? You don't have Spider-Man anymore.
Yeah, you violated Spider-Man,
You
and
have a facsimile of Spider-Man.
it's kind of like we said in DMs where it's like the movie we just watched, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, understands Spider-Man on such a deep level.
It
It
under it really deconstructs Spider-Man.
yeah,
That's what this movie does.
and it's great. It's beautiful even.
And it's an important part of, I don't know about in the comics, but at least in this movie, it's an important part of Miles's journey to understand what Spider-Man is.
Right. I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be a thing in the comics, just from what I've heard from people. I've not actually read much Miles. Like I said, the only like comic series I've completed of Spider-Man is Superior Spider-Man because I thought that was such a cool idea and I wanted to see how it played out. Um, it's really good, by the way. And yeah, I've heard from people that a big part of Miles' journey is figuring out what it means to be Spider-Man, especially in a world where so many people have this ideal of a perfect Spider-Man because it was Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah, I, I don't know. This movie will forever annoy me.
Yeah, it's just a it's It's the best disappointment I've ever had.
Actually, you know what? This movie will forever annoy me until the next time I go to watch a Marvel movie in theaters. And then I'll
Uh,
praise the Lords that this was at least this good.
right?